Hey, what's going on, Connect Church family and friends? Welcome to our C3 podcast. We're really excited. We have Gordon with us today, and he has stepped in to lead our men's ministry here at Connect Church, and we're really excited about what's happening. So we figured it'd be a great time to get him on the podcast, learn a little bit about him, find out some of your history, which is very rich and amazing, and then maybe give him some opportunity to share his vision for the men's ministry here at Connect. We're really excited. This was really a piece that we knew that was important here at Connect. So why don't you start off just by sharing with us your Jesus story? Like, how did you meet Jesus?
I can. And by the way, before I do that, yes, the mustache is real.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. And I grew it on a deer.
I love it.
Many years ago, 1977, I was in college and didn't like the school, didn't like the city where I was for my freshman year of college. So I started looking around, had uncles in 3 cities, Minneapolis, Laramie, Wyoming, and Washington. I forget what the city was for Washington, but they had universities in each of the 3 cities.
Yeah.
And Wyoming was the cheapest one, so I went there. Started out living with my uncle. That didn't work out, got my own place. And I had been there for about 3 weeks at this point. Hadn't made any friends. And I went to first a concert in the park. And I was raised church going, was an altar boy, did the whole, every Sunday thing, but never had any kind of awareness of God or relationship with God or anything like that. Well, these 2 people that I met in the park hammered me for like 4 hours just trying to tell me about this Jesus that I'd heard the name for my whole life, but they had this thing with him that I just didn't understand. And 4 hours later, I still didn't understand it.
Yeah.
I ended up moving out of my uncle's house, and I was walking around on campus, and I hadn't seen them again, still didn't have any friends. And there was a sign that said, like folk music, come to a coffee house. I'm like, cool, I like folk music, I'll come. I walk in there, and the singer is warming up, and he's singing more of that same kind of music, that Jesus music. And I'm like, really? I stood up to leave, and apart from the Holy Spirit, to this day, that's the only thing that would have made me sit down again, because I was on my way out the door. But I sat back down, and this guy comes and sits in the chair, like on the corner of the table with me. And you got to understand, I, going through high school, was a clean-cut, all-American boy.
Yep.
Okay. This guy had hair. He
looked like
he
a
was
hippie,
a
right?
hippie.
Yeah.
Not, apologies to any hippies, not the person that at that time in my life that I would associate with.
Sure.
Sits down, puts his Bible, boom, on the table.
Yeah.
I'm like, here we go. He says, hi, how you doing?
You were like, I can't get away from this guy.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And this is the actual conversation. I said, okay, listen, you know why you're here. I know why you're here. So why don't we just cut to the chase, okay?
Yeah, I love it.
And he said, okay, sure. First, my name's Tom. I told him my name.
Yeah.
I said, I got one question. What makes you so cocksure you're going to heaven when you die? Because I was raised, you got the good side, you got the bad side, and you hope for the best. And he thought about it for just a second, flips through his Bible, spins it around, and slides it in front of me. He says, read this. And it was 1 John 5:13. These things are written to you who believe, that you may know that you have eternal life, and in knowing you may continue to believe.
Come on.
I looked down at that, looked at him, looked down at that, looked at him, said, okay, it's good enough for me. How do I get it?
Wow.
And that was it.
That's awesome.
The guy felt like he must have walked by the tree and the fruit fell off.
Yeah.
He didn't know about the 4 hours from a week before.
Yeah, somebody already plowed the ground in your heart a little bit, huh?
So he talked me through the sinner's prayer and confessing my need, which I knew my need.
Yeah, totally right.
All-American boy or not, I knew I needed something more than I had. I knew I was not fit.
Yeah.
I was worried that the scale that I'd grown up with was going to be way too on the wrong side.
Yep.
So that was September 9th, 1978.
That's awesome.
And So 43, almost 44 years now.
Wow.
That I've been walking.
That's amazing. And so that kind of put you on the path to go to Bible college, right?
It did. 2 months actually after that, it was getting on like Thanksgiving time, and my home was 2,000 miles away. I was not going home.
Yeah.
So he invited me to his house for the weekend. And early one morning, early one morning in November in Wyoming, it was cold.
Yep, I'm sure.
But I went out on their back deck or patio, whatever it was.
The same guy from the...
Same guy.
Yep, okay.
Tom Lamons. We're still friends 40-odd years later.
Yeah, love it.
I went out on the back deck, and I was just kind of reading my Bible and just thinking, wasn't really praying, hardcore praying or anything like that, just kind of thinking about, God, what's in my life? Where am I going? What am I doing? And that's when the call to ministry came, was that morning. I can pinpoint the morning where God said, you're going into ministry.
Wow.
And I didn't know what that meant, and it literally took me almost 4 years before I actually went to Bible college. I went to what was then Zion Bible Institute. Now it's called North Point College up in Rhode Island. And I now know God was holding me back from going because my wife was too young to go when I wanted to go. So I had to wait the 4 years till she was there.
That's funny.
And that's where I met Nancy.
That's awesome.
And I actually went there with a chip on my shoulder when I went to Bible college, saying, I'm not here. It's not a bridal college. I'm not coming here to find a girl. And
I've noticed when you tell God things like, I'm not gonna, that's usually when he brings stuff around like that, right?
Yeah. And I'll give you a specific on that. When I started dating my wife in 1983, 84, I had, back in that time, there was a song by Scott Wesley Brown called Please Don't Send Me to Africa. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was me. I'm like, I'll pray for missionaries. I'll give to missionaries. I'll host missionaries. I'll knit socks for missionaries if I need to.
Yeah.
I ain't going. I don't. And one of my teachers was a missionary in Bible college that had come home and finished his time as a missionary. So now he was a teacher at the college. And he and I became close friends, Dr. Wins.
Wow.
And after Bible college, I found out my father-in-law was let me date his daughter because I was never going to take her to Africa.
Right.
And 9 years go by. I lose touch with Dr. Wins. He started a ministry called Barnabas Ministries, where he realized as a traditional missionary that it wasn't working because what would happen is number one, he had a small sphere of influence. Number two, he would go, do the work, come home, and the work stops.
Right.
So he conceived this notion that, and remember, this is 1986 that he's doing all of this.
Yeah.
Before there was internet, before, anything. And there were men and women who were called to ministry that had never been to college, never been to Bible college.
Sure.
Some of them didn't even have whole Bibles.
Sure.
So he conceived of this ministry that I'm going to go to Africa and I'm going to take teams of American pastors and we're going to encourage them, teach them, support them.
Love it.
And then supply them with materials so that they can learn.
Love it.
So the philosophy was the best way to win Africa, the best people to win Africans are Africans.
Right, totally.
So he began this ministry and it blossomed over the next 9 years.
Yeah.
I reconnected with him in 1994.
That was probably cutting edge, right?
It was at that time. There was nobody doing that. Now there's a whole bunch of people doing it, and it's, but back then nobody was doing something like that.
Wow.
So they do a banquet every year, and I found out about it through a series of channels. Well, we only lived about an hour and a half from there, so I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
So we go to the banquet, and he starts talking about the teams, and he mentioned that for that summer. And I'm a brand new senior pastor at Third Baptist Church, North Stonington, Connecticut. And he says, for this coming summer, we've had several people that have had to drop off the teams. Pray that God will supply people to go on the teams this year. So didn't think too much of it. I'm walking out with Nancy, my wife, and I just happened to comment to her, maybe I should give him a call sometime and talk to him about maybe going. And she grabs my hand and says, no, you'll talk to him now, because she had the same thing.
Wow, that's
and
cool.
We went up to the front, talked to him, and that was my first of my dozen trips to Africa, was that
awesome.
summer. Went to Cape Town, South Africa.
Yep.
It was 105 degrees here where she was. It was between 35 and 40 degrees, 35 and 45 and rainy where I was.
Yeah, yeah. Their seasons are opposite.
Their seasons are opposite. So it was wintertime there.
Yeah.
But we ministered there for, I think it was like 4 days that we were there. So it was a really short trip.
Yeah.
But it was my first time going.
That's
and
amazing.
He told me on that trip, Dr. Wins did, that once you get African dirt on your shoes, it's hard to get it off, meaning you'll always want to go back.
Sure. Yeah.
And I always do.
I just want to know, what did your father-in-law say to you?
Well, I still hadn't taken his daughter.
Yeah,
So
that's
he was still cool with me
okay
going.
with it, yeah.
In fact, on that trip, he came to Connecticut to the two of them, the father and daughter, gutted and remodeled my bathroom while I was in Africa. So he was cool with it, but I do have to tell you, in 2013,
That's so
I took his daughter to Africa.
That's so funny.
She's only been on one trip with me. She was our prayer support and official photographer for that trip.
Yeah, that's great.
And we went to Kenya.
Yeah.
And it was an absolutely one of the best trips that I've had. Was that trip.
That's great.
And
that's great.
Just wonderful.
Yeah. So you mentioned you were senior pastor. How long did you senior pastor at church for?
So I was on a paid and or unpaid staff at churches from the time I graduated Bible college in '85 through 1994, and I was kind of getting frustrated, frankly, because I'm like, God, when is it my, you called me the minister. When is it my turn?
Yeah.
And I poured my heart out to him one night in the sanctuary of the church with exactly that prayer. God, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And literally days later, my pastor came to me and said, hey, do you know Pastor so-and-so from this church over in North Stonington? I'm like, yeah. He was a Navy chaplain who also pastored. And was retiring, and his wife didn't want to stay in New England. She wanted to go back home to Kentucky.
Yeah.
And he said, they're looking for a pastor. Would you be interested in interviewing with them? And I said, I told him what had happened like a couple of nights before in the church. And I said, yeah, I think I would, because,
Yeah.
And when I went there and did the interview, the initial interview, I was at that point credentialed with the Assemblies of God. That was a Baptist church, so there are some doctrinal things that you got to work through,
Yep.
And I literally, in the interview, gave him every reason not to hire me. I talked about the difference in the gifts of the Spirit, and said, and by the way, yes, I will preach on it at some point.
Yeah. So you held fast to your convictions, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
And they voted. There were 26 voting members on the Sunday, and they voted 25-1 to bring me on board.
That's amazing.
And I stayed there for 11 years.
Wow.
I was, at the time, that church was 170 odd years old.
Yeah.
And when I left as the longest tenured pastor in the history of the church.
That's
11 years
awesome.
I was there.
That's amazing.
So.
Yeah. So I know you had some transitions in between there. Why don't you maybe share with everybody how you ended up at Connect, and then maybe share some vision for our men's ministry, and I'm really excited that you're here with us.
So to understand me philosophically and my view of ministry, I have an almost military view of ministry.
Yeah,
like I don't go where I want to go.
Yep.
I wait. God says, I need you here. I go here.
That's
and
good.
every change that we've made
Yeah.
in ministry has been that kind of change. It's been a call to something.
That's really good. I think we call that following his voice.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Well, last year, it's actually a year ago, like right now.
Yeah.
I was happy. I'd been in a church for a long time, for 10 years, just helping out, working in the church.
Yep.
And on a Sunday morning, God was like, I'm taking you out of here.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, where am I going?
Yeah.
And it was, I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
You have to step out in faith this time.
Wow.
And I went to the pastor
Yeah.
because I believe if you're going to leave a church, leave well. You
Yep.
don't just disappear.
That's good.
And I went and consulted with the pastor. He said, I know, God already told me
Wow.
that this was going to happen. He said, we're going to pray over you next Sunday and release you to whatever God has for you.
Isn't that a big deal? I think, I just want to interject really quick. Like, it's a big deal that you went to your leaders and you expressed with them what God was sharing and God had spoke to them. I think that I've seen a lot of people come and go in churches, and they'll show up and then they just disappear. And being a pastor, what hurts the most, it isn't that people come and go. It's that you never get to have that conversation
they disappear.
with them. Yeah,
they disappear.
Yeah, totally.
And I would want them, honestly, if you're not happy with me or the church or something, tell me.
Yeah,
and even if even if it's something we can't fix, let us bless you on the way out.
Totally. Yep.
Now, the other side of that coin is when someone would come to my church from another church. First thing I ask them is, how did you leave your last church?
Absolutely.
Did you have a meeting with your leadership? Did you leave well?
It's good.
And because if you didn't leave there well, you're not going to leave here well.
Yeah, and what are you bringing in here with you? Some bitterness sure.
So there we were. We were several weeks not knowing where we were going. Megan and Sean were going to another church. Megan is my daughter. Sean is my son-in-law. And
Sean's our youth leader here, and Megan helps lead worship, and among many other things, helps.
Yeah, they were going to another church in town, and we went there just to encourage them. We didn't know that we were going to be there for any length of time. And about the second or third week, the Lord spoke to my heart and said, this is a 6-month assignment.
Wow.
I mean, it was that specific.
Yeah.
We'll be here for 6 months.
Yep.
So I said, okay, well, literally a couple of weeks after that, they started coming to Connect. And I had a harsh conversation with my son-in-law. I'm like, okay, listen. This isn't good for you. It's not good for your family. He said, you need to trust me, Dad. It's good.
Yeah.
God is in this. And in retrospect, God was absolutely in it.
Yeah.
Because not only for them, but for us.
Yeah.
The 6 months ended at the end of August.
Yep.
So first Sunday of September, we're like, I guess we'll just go visit Megan and Sean.
Yeah.
So we got to church early. We actually got to church before they did.
Yeah.
We live 52 miles from here.
Wow.
Got to church before they did. And this guy, Gabe, comes up to me, and Nancy and I are sitting there. He introduced himself. Hi, my name's Gabe. That over there, that's my wife, Sabrina.
Yep.
Who are you? Can introduce yourself.
Yeah.
So we're Megan's parents. We love Megan, all of this,
Yeah.
Sabrina comes over. I said, hi, Sabrina. She's like, did you get a word from the Lord or something?
Yeah.
She hadn't been introduced.
Yep.
But then the two of them asked us, so where are you fellowshipping? And I said, well, we don't know.
Yeah.
This assignment just ended, and we're asking the Lord, what's next?
Yeah.
And Gabe literally said, well, let's pray about it right now, and grabs hands and starts praying. And while he's praying, again, almost audibly, as clear as day, the Spirit said to my heart, this is where you are next.
Wow. Love it.
And I mean, to be honest, I said, God, I wouldn't have minded if you brought us someplace a little closer to home.
Yeah, I get it.
But I don't care. I mean, in one of our calls, we were 70 miles from the church.
Wow. That's amazing.
And we did that for a year.
Man, talk about like just a willingness to follow his voice and knowing, right, that there's the favor of God in that, right?
My Bible college president, my freshman year, was a man named Leonard Hero. And he was an elderly man, preached from a wheelchair, but there was power. And one of his key phrases that he always said, and I'll even do it in the Leonard Hero voice. He said, when you know that you know that you know. And that's what this was.
So good.
That's what this was. Because I would not have been happy going someplace else.
Yep.
I would not have been fulfilled going someplace else.
Yeah.
God can do anything. He could have used me someplace else, but this is where he said, no, this is the spot.
Well, we're super thankful that he did say that, because you're just such a valuable asset to us with your heart for men, and but also community, and even the way that you've even ministered on the prayer team to people. And so why don't you share with me your vision for our men's Connect.
Let's talk about men, because I will confess to you. I mean, I've always cared about where men are in the church, but I've never had a heart for men's ministry. And two things over the last 2 years changed that. First, when COVID hit, one of the pastors that I worked with in Connecticut, in fact, the pastor that I was working with that told me about the church in North Stonington, is a man by the name of Brad Whipple, godly man, beautiful man of God. And when COVID hit, he still wanted to keep his men active.
Yeah.
So he basically built and designed with his team a Zoom online Bible study for men. And I got wind of this because I'm friends with him on Facebook, and we talk, and I'm like, can anybody join this? He said, well, of course. Yeah. So I did that with his men's group and connected with them. And at the time, it just meant so much to me to still be able to connect.
Yeah.
And then shout out and kudos to our brothers and sisters over at Generation Church, because during that 6-month assignment there, I got to see what a vibrant, active men's group could look like.
Yeah, like a model.
It was a great model.
Yep.
And that kind of birthed something in me. So I came here, and I think you were the one I had the conversation with. I said, hey, y'all got you got a men's group? And the response was, why, you got a heart for it?
Yeah.
I said, well, yeah, I do.
Yep.
And so,
because we've had like a men's gathering, here monthly, just for breakfast and fellowship, but and it was good. It was a way to connect, but I was really excited to hear that someone maybe had some vision and passion to really bring more
and for me,
depth to that.
The word says, without a vision, the people perish.
That's right.
And as I began to pray about whether this was something I should do, the Lord gave me a 3-tiered vision.
Yeah.
Very specific vision for you. If you're watching this and you're one of the men of the church, this is the vision for you.
That's good. That
first, we need fellowship. Men don't have friends anymore, just guys that they can hang with.
Yep.
And so that's tier 1 is fellowship. And we've done that here at Connect over the years with men's breakfasts and things like that. So we want that to be there. And sometimes breakfast will be just breakfast.
Yep.
Sometimes it'll be breakfast with a devotion. Once in a while, we'll have a full-on guest speaker, have a light breakfast, and do a guest speaker. So that's tier 1. The next tier is modeled after what they did at Seaport, where I wanted to take from that broader group, and this was strictly voluntary. It hasn't started yet. It's going to start in about probably 5 or 6 weeks from now. An online study with a small group of men where we will go through a book on being a Christian man.
Yeah.
And the one that we're actually going to choose is the same one that Seaport used last year, was The Christian Man by Patrick Morley.
Yeah, love it.
Where we will meet for an hour every week, every other week, thereabouts, on a weeknight via either Zoom or WebEx or whatever platform.
Some platform, yeah.
And we will go through and take a little bit deeper dive into what it means to be a man and a Christian.
Love it.
But even that, if we're going to be what God calls us to be as men of God, there needs to be another level. And if you look at the scriptural model, it's mentoring.
Yep.
It's when you see men that are raised up in Scripture, they were mentored by other men.
Yeah.
So the third tier of this, and we don't have a timetable for this yet, is to meet with the church leadership, identify some mature, strong, solid Christian men in the church. Will not be a volunteer thing. They will be asked to do it. But then, once we have that small group of men, find other men who want to be mentored.
Yeah.
And they will enter into it. It's a covenant relationship that you're going to, with your mentor, be open, be accountable, be regular in your time with them, and be brought into maturity as a man.
Yeah.
And then over the course of time, that 3-tiered cycle can repeat.
Yep.
And the ones that are mentored can eventually become mentors themselves.
That's so good.
And if we do that, and if we execute it according to God's plan and God's desire and in His strength, the result should be that we have a group of men in this church that have now taken next steps in the Lord. Some of them will get called to ministry.
Yep.
Some of them will find time on the mission field.
Yep.
And some of them will have families that will come back together that have been torn apart.
I love it. I love it.
So that's my heart for it.
I think the most maturity that came to me in my spirituality was through spiritual fathering, and
Absolutely.
I'll never forget. It was this. So there was a little distance between us, so we would do once a month face-to-face meetings, but then phone calls. And I'll never forget. It was the second time doing a phone call, and I called. It was like 2 minutes late after the time, and he didn't answer. And he sent me a text, and he said, "We'll try next week. Be on time." And he was letting me know, that if this isn't important to you, then it's not going to work, right?
Yeah.
And so I like how you mentioned that. And
I can look back, 43 years in the Lord.
yeah,
Jim Pierce, Brad Whipple,
love it. Yep.
Don Prue.
That's so important.
Men that have taken me under their wing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And grown me
Yep.
in my faith.
It's so good.
Yeah.
There's a quote that I like to use often: "You can grow a congregation and not grow the church." And I think
Absolutely
discipleship
Absolutely true.
is key to that. And I think that for men, I think it is difficult to engage those relationships and go deep. And that's what we need to encourage and go after. So I'm thankful that you're here. I'm thankful that your heart and passion is geared towards this. And I know it's also towards other things. So I look forward to how God's going to continue to use you here at Connect, but specifically right now with men's ministry. And I'm going to do the online. So if someone wanted to join the online that we're going to launch off here soon, what's the name of the book? So they can, again, I know you mentioned it. But
It's called The Christian Man.
Okay.
It's by Patrick Morley. In another week or two, I'm going to order a lot of them.
Okay.
Because if I order them in bulk, I can
Yep.
get them cheaper. So
cool.
They can do something on a Connect card and say, hey, I want to do this.
Okay.
Come to the next men's breakfast.
Yep.
I'll have the sign-up sheet there again.
Yep.
That's February 19th, and we'll give date and time and
Yep. It'll be out
location,
there,
all of that.
yep.
It'll be out there. So come to that because I'll have a sign-up for that. We wanted to wait until after this one to start really getting the ball rolling on
Yeah.
that. So if you want to, the book is available. I mean, you can go to Patrick Morley's website, you can go to Amazon, you can go, wherever.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if you get a digital or physical copy. That, the ones that I get will be obviously physical copies.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have all that information out there for you guys. It'll be on our events calendar, websites, Facebook app, all of that. Gordon, I want to thank you for being with us
Pleasure.
today. Connect Church, friends, family, thanks for joining us on our C3 podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We're definitely going to have Gordon back because I know there's a lot more stuff to get into.
There are stories.
So be looking for him in the future. You guys have an amazing week. Bless you guys. See you soon.